Welcome to Searching for Truth and Treasure in Alabama with Alabama historian, videographer, and speaker Jim Phillips. Jim has spent the last 40 years exploring and finding amazing artifacts on lesser-known sites in the state. He's here with us to discuss the how and where you can legally explore old, privately owned sites and find those amazing treasures from the state's past. Plus, he's going to tell you a story or two about hard-to-believe events he's encountered as he's toured the state. So let's get into it. Here's Jim Phillips. All right, welcome in, everybody, to another podcast with Jim Phillips. Today, it's all about bottles, right, Jim?
Yeah, we're going to stick to bottles, and I'm not even going to tell the unbelievable stories about apparitions and UFOs in this one, which I've encountered, but you got to watch the other podcasts or listen to it to get into that. And I'll take a lie detector test. I'll tell people, you pay for it, I'll take it. I'll pass it.
Yeah, go back and listen to other podcasts because Jim's got some great.
And let me say, too, now I've done over 1,200 talks in the past few years at libraries, historical societies, senior centers, retirement communities, colleges, historical societies. I get around.
Yeah, you do.
And anyway, so I have a lot of fun with it, and people seem to enjoy it. Okay, fire away.
Bottles. What do we want to know about them?
I'm drinking out of a metal thermos right now because I've got sinus trouble.
Jim's got the old January sniffles going, but he's assured me that he's not contaminating the podcast studio, so I'm going to believe him on that.
Well, I've been a metal detectorist, for years, and I always been fascinated with old bottles. And somebody told me where the old bakery dump was in Birmingham, down into the wooded area near the railroad track and behind a bakery. And that used to be a swamp in the late 1880s up to about 1915. So I went over there, and they hadn't dug there in months. I mean, it was grown. They were like bomb craters, but they were covered in weeds. Nobody's digging over there.
Right.
So I started digging, and with the third scoop, I dug up a beautiful emerald green piezo consumption bottle, which is not worth a lot, $7, $8.
Right.
That is if somebody wants it, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was addicted because I never really dug bottles. I dug there for a big part of my life, just digging, and I got the most valuable thing. I dug Motlow Distilling Company, a whiskey. Jack Daniels was called Motlow Distilling in Birmingham, about 1901 to 1906. And I dug it, and I knew it had to be worth some money. And a guy bought it from me for $450, and God bless him, he put it on eBay and got $1,000.
Wow.
He said, "Now, aren't you mad at him?" No,
yeah. You made your money. He made his.
God bless him, man. he knew a little more about the market out there. He was a little bigger in the bottle. So
yeah.
But then I've never dug the Holy Grail. We're going to jump to this to keep people's interest.
Mm-hmm.
The most valuable of all American soda bottles dates back to 1901. Now, they were putting soda in Hutchison bottles designed by John Hutchison by the late 1880s. But then Coca-Cola, let me give you a little Coca-Cola history.
Mm-hmm.
Coca-Cola was created by Asa Candler, and he sold the formula to, John Pemberton created it, and he sold the formula to Asa Candler, who had a soda fountain at Jacob's Pharmacy in Atlanta. Get my facts straight on this. And they only sold it at the soda fountain. But
Right.
then they started selling it in bottles, and the first time they sold it in bottles was like about 1897. The bottles did not say Coca-Cola on them. It was Binding Candy Company in Mississippi, over on the Mississippi River. They bought the syrup, and they put it in. It just said Binding Candy Company. And it was real popular. And then, about 1898, in Chattanooga, they had a bottling plant, and they started putting it in bottles that said Coca-Cola. They misspelled it in blocks. And then about 1901, they flipped over to Coca-Cola in that beautiful script. And those bottles are worth a lot. But in 1901, Coca-Cola came to Birmingham, and they opened up bottling plants, and they had Hutchison bottles, which look like fire extinguishers. They're like tubes.
Yeah.
And the guy, I can't do this without showing people. It's got a wire loop in the top and a rubber gasket.
Right.
And you got to drink it, and the rubber gasket bounces around in there. It's kind of complicated, but it's a weird looking.
Google it, people. You can find it.
Yeah, but anyway, let me tell you, it was real popular. And Coke sold a ton of Coca-Cola in 1901. Birmingham, Bessemer, Jasper, Anniston, Gaston, Talladega, Tuskegee, These are in. I said, Jasper, yeah, these are Hutchison bottles with the Coca-Cola syrup being mixed and put in them. Now, they sold the hotcakes out of them, so much so that later in 1901, they started putting it in different bottles called straight sides.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not worth much. But the Hutchison bottles from these towns start at $5,000 each.
Wow.
I never even know
Whoa.
a broke one or a piece of a Coke Hutchison. But now, last summer, I'm downtown and I'm watching construction going on, and this guy's backhoeing with a big backhoe. And I see bottles coming out. And I know that's an old dump.
Yeah.
It's an old dump. And people aren't allowed to dig in there. But so I called him over. It's a Sunday afternoon. I says, "Are you getting some old bottles?" He said, "Yeah, I took some home yesterday." I said, "Can I see them?" He said, "Sure." So he brought them the next day. There were no Hutchisons, but there was a Hutchison from Texas. I gave him $15. It sold in San Antonio, where it's from, for $237. Not
Wow.
bad. But there are a lot of medicines. People don't collect medicines like I do. Not worth a lot.
Right.
But I held up the Coke Hutchison bottle and I said, "This is a Hutchison style bottle designed by Mr. Hutchison. They were popular in the 1880s up to about 1908. Now, if you get one of these that says Coca-Cola in that script, it says Birmingham, Bessemer, Jasper, etc., you got yourself at least $5,000. Well, 2 days later, I'm coming back from doing a talk, and I get a text, and I punch it, and it says, "Can you believe this?" There it is, sitting on the tire of his backhoe.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I called him. I says, "I'm not believing it." I says, "Is it damaged?" He said, "Well, there's a little chip off the bottom, and that little chip is going to take the value down to about $1,500.
Right.
He said, "I didn't know what a Coke Hutchison was or anything until I met you, and already." I said, "Yeah, and you may be as much as $5,000 richer."
Yeah.
But he
Wow.
didn't find any more, but I've never dug a broken one, like I said.
That's crazy. So to dig bottles, it's not like you can use a metal detector or something. You just kind of.
So, well, the metal detector can tell you you're in a dump, and you will hit like Crown Tops because they started putting
Okay.
those caps on them in
Right.
1901. And the medicine bottles, even in the 1880s, they'd put little like Imperial Crowns on salve for women's complexion.
I gotcha.
18. So you're hitting that.
Okay.
Your metal detector is going to be going doom 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 doom. It's going to go crazy.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know you're in a dump.
Yeah.
But what you look for is colored glass. You look for what's called cobalt blue.
Mm-hmm.
The glass turns blue by putting cobalt in liquefied sand where they heat it. You got brown glass, emerald green, cobalt blue, and if you find a half of a bottle or something, look for air bubbles. They got little air bubbles in the glass. It's thick glass, and it's those old colors. You're in a dump that
Yeah.
dates back to the 1800s. And they started making bottles in machines about 1916.
Huh.
So you can tell when you're used to it what an old bottle is. And he had learned. He didn't dig anymore. We were watching
Wow.
for it. And he wanted to know if I wanted to buy it, but I'd just break it if I bought it. Number two, I didn't have the money to buy it. But
So all right. So let's say I'm deciding I'm gonna go start digging bottles. How do you know where to even start? Like, I mean, is there like on a piece of property? Do you go back in tax records and figure out where the home place was? And
yeah,
and
I
try-
asked people,
yeah.
bottle diggers, and I called them up, said who I am. And I love old bottles. And where did y'all used to dig? And some were smart Alex, right? You're a tough guy and all that. They talk to you like you're a dummy, but at least 2/3 were kind. And that's, you go down to the Green Springs and there's that stream down there. You can't dig down there now, but in the bank, and I dug some out down there. And they just told me where to go. Now, somebody told me what was called the bakery dump, and I mentioned that on a podcast the other day.
Yeah.
There was a woods, and used to be a bakery
Right.
1890s. And I went over there. I got up in the woods, and I saw all those look like bomb craters that had grown up with weeds.
Right. Right.
Nobody's been digging there. And I told you the third or fourth scoop out came piezo consumption.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I knew there were still bottles there. And I dug several hundred right there. Never dug anything extremely valuable.
Yeah.
That bottle, Motlow Distilling, was valuable. Rick was digging with me. He's passed away. He dug Jacob's Pharmacy with Atlanta on it. That's where they first served Coca-Cola.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in 1886. And it's an amber bottle. That's a medicine bottle. It's not Coke.
Yeah.
But it says Jacob's Pharmacy, Atlanta. And the bottle books say those are like $250 to $350.
Right.
Not extremely rare, but it's Coca-Cola history.
Yeah.
And his mother gave me the bottle and all that. But There, we have Hutchison style bottles here that say goofy things on them. We have National Dope Company, and it dates like 1901 to about 1905. And because it says National Dope, Birmingham, Alabama people want it. And that
Yeah.
bottle's going to bring you $100.
Yeah.
People just like having that. We got celery cola, Riola. Listen to this: Ozola, Happyola. These are all colas, right? We got a cola nip. I mean, you got. And back in those days, the old timers would talk, and they would call it. What was the term they used for that? Go get me a cola. Uh, they had a term that sent a grandkid to get a cola, and my God, I forgot what the term is. And anyways, a lot of people when I talk to seniors remember some of these terms.
Yeah. So was there a particular place like on a home, say in the 1800s, early 1900s?
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
Yeah, where on a
what-
property would a
now,
dump be?
at the bakery, you're digging where there was a creek, number one,
Okay.
and then it was a swamp. And so what you had was the merchants would bring up bags and boxes of garbage and throw it in the swamp.
Okay.
That was their dumping ground. So
Gotcha.
there's all kinds of stuff from Birmingham from 1880, 1890s, I'd say, up to about 1950,
Hmm.
all in the dirt, thrown away with the
Oh, wow.
swamp. Oh, you find bones from amputated legs.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, in hospitals. But out in the countryside, and when I talk, I tell people this, and Deanna Dothan, the girl, listened to me. I said, if you've got an old house that goes back, early 1900s at least, or crosses the barrier and goes into the 1900s, go find a creek behind it
Mm-hmm.
and look for oyster shells.
Mm.
If it's near a town, the trains brought in oysters, and people bought and made oysters back then. Look for a white glass that's thick called milk glass,
Mm-hmm.
cobalt glass. Look in the creek banks. She called me that night, all excited, maybe the next night. My husband, we got milk glass, everything.
Oh, wow.
And I says, well, you're into a dump, and now most of that stuff should not be broken.
Right.
But don't tell everybody about it
Yeah.
because bottle diggers will find out and come in and just clean out your creek
Mhm.
bank and steal everything that's there. But can you make money with them? Yeah. But you got to find out, like with me, I love the old medicines and all that. They're not that popular.
Right.
But some other people do. You got to know where the market is. If eBay is kind of gone sour.
Yeah, eBay's changed a lot.
Yeah,
from
I
its
just
early
I
days.
said I've been put things on eBay and everybody's watching it and monitoring it. And like my friend says, oh, you got to pay them money to them to advertise.
Yeah.
Now they don't. There's a fee to list it and promote it.
Right.
If it says, make sure it gets attention. Pay a fee.
Spend your $50 before you
we're
make
gonna
your
charge a
$30.
fee and you can sell it. So I haven't put anything on eBay in forever.
Wow.
It's been 9 months, a year.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
But everybody's telling me, no, it's ruined.
Right.
They're
So the bottle books you're talking about, is there a particular one you use, like the actual book that tells you? Or
there's
is there
a lot
several
of them.
different
There's
ones?
one that's real conservative by Hugh Cleveland, Hugh Cleveland, Cleveland. Hugh Cleveland, he actually goes through, and most of these little clear medicine bottles, he tells the truth. He said $1, $2, and that's if you're lucky.
Right.
So he will get into some, and he'll maybe have $40 to $60, and that's a bottle that should get 40 to 60.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got Jacob's Pharmacy in there, and he's got down $250 to $400, which is okay. It's whoever wants it, and you never know. But Coca-Cola carries a big command.
Yeah.
I mean, there are Coca-Cola collectors everywhere. Anything that's old with Coca-Cola. They have serving trays. I bought some in an antique shop, and they're from like 1910, and I paid about $25 each. And it's got women,
Mm-hmm.
waitresses,
I've seen those. Yeah.
serving and all
Yeah.
that. So I don't know if I'm ever going to make any money on them, but they're real pretty. So Coca-Cola collectibles are really hot.
Right.
I mean, they're really hot. And
So let me ask you a question about this. So say I find some bottles and they're dirty and you can't tell much about them. Should I clean it or should I not clean it?
yeah, you want
Does
to
it
clean them.
affect the
Just
value?
But yeah, be careful cleaning them.
Yeah.
I got a guy now out in Northeast Alabama and bought some bottles. He wants to see some more. He says, can you clean them and take pictures? I don't want to take pictures of that and line them up and go. I says, I'm going to clean them and call them and say, I'll come out there and metal detect and you can meet me. And look at, we did that the last time.
Yeah.
If you want them, pay me.
Right.
I'm not stingy with these prices.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But
So is there a particular way to clean them? Just regular soap and water?
yeah. Be careful. Don't break them, but put them in a a bucket or a big tub and put warm water in there with some astringent soap, dishwashing soap, and let them sit.
Yeah.
And get we want to get one of these wire brushes that
Mm-hmm.
you stick in baby bottles.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And don't force it, but stick them down there and spin it around to get the mud out and
I
all
gotcha.
that, and rub them. And let me tell you, they're all scratched up. Most of these
Yeah.
bottles are so scratched. They're milky looking from all the scratches.
Right. Right.
You want to find, if you can, one that was thrown away after being used once, or it was found under a house.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody dropped a Coca-Cola Hutchinson through a hole in the floor in Bessemer about 1901 when it was a new bottle, and they found it. It had dust on it, but this bottle had never been circulated.
Oh, wow.
And that bottle brought $6,000 or $7,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
There's a couple of Coke bottles that I've heard of from small towns in Alabama. It was a myth that they ever had a Coke plant. I hear now they have actually found a bottle or two, and you're looking at $16,000.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, that's what.
So how many bottles do you think you have in your
Well, right now,
collection?
I probably got 350, 400.
Oh, wow.
And I've sold off a bunch of them. Sold off a bunch.
Do you have them on display or do you have them all boxed up?
Some are on display, but so many of them are dirty.
Yeah.
And I've got embalming fluid. They're dirty, and you got to clean them. And it's just a clear bottle. It's
Yeah.
so-and-so's embalming fluid. There's nothing to it.
Oh, wow.
It's got the city like St. Louis. Usually they got a city, and it's on the book a $20 bottle.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? You call a funeral home
Yeah. Yeah.
or an embalming school at
Yeah.
Jefferson State. They got one and say, I've got an 1880 to 1900 Davis or whatever embalming fluid bottle that came out of a pit and all this, and I'll sell it for $25. Do you want it? And
So find the market for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I look for people.
Yeah.
I look for people. I found a guy that was he was a barber or something, and I had a bottle that's supposed to grow hair, which it wouldn't do. But I called him, and I had his phone number and called him, and I said, this is on eBay. Do you want it? And I've got it for like $60. And he said, yeah, I'll buy it tonight. And he did. But I went after that. I'm looking for people that want what I've got.
Yeah.
I go sniffing for them, not just, oh, I'm going to list this bottle, hope
Right.
somebody sees it.
Right.
And that works like a charm.
Yeah.
But like I say, the general marketing of a general audience on eBay is not getting it nowadays.
Yeah. 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 You got to be spending money. So you got to be trying to sell higher ticket items for it to be worth your time and money, probably to.
And you got to be careful. I told you, this elderly guy used to dig bottles in Florida, and I visited him, 16, 17 years ago, and he had a English Mallet Pirates black glass rum bottle.
Oh, cool.
It had the hump on it because they made it real crude, spinning it on a stick.
Yeah.
It had what's called a pontal, a sunken area on the bottom, full of 1,000,000 air bubbles. Dark green, almost black. That's why they call it black glass.
Right.
And I told you how I broke it. I set it down, was sitting on my steps downstairs, and tried to step on a bug, a roach, and kicked it, knocked it out in the concrete, and broke it. And I can glue it back together so people can see what it looked like, but there ain't no selling this. And the guy with the restaurant,
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Oh,
mentioned
man.
that.
That sounds like something I'd do. That's just a random thing right there. All right. What else about bottles? Anything else we need to know? I mean, you've touched on some good stuff.
Well,
there.
there's no value in what people, they show up when I talk, and God bless them. They've got RC Cola and Pepsi from the 1950s. They just throw them in a glass recycling center. There's just really no value in that. And they'll even tell you, I got a case of Coca-Cola from the 1970s or Pepsi. Well, no one's going to drink it,
Right.
and nobody wants it.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody may give you $5 for all
Right.
those in a bottle, but there's just no real value there. And so now there was what's called mold bottles, and I think I showed you the one that looks like a cigar,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and it's a cigar flask, and it looks like a cigar, clear glass, and the embossing, that means molding into the glass when they heated it and made it, is tobacco. Looks like tobacco wrapped, but
Oh,
it's clear
cool.
glass.
Huh.
So anyway, you put your whiskey in the cigar flask and put a cork on the end of it, and now you got yourself a cigar. You can now go, listen, medicines, And whiskeys were considered a medicine. People
Right.
went to church with whiskeys in their pocket.
Yeah.
They advertised whiskeys as a medicine, but you might not want to show up in church with it. There's still some apprehension. But you get that cigar flask and put it in your pocket, and I come in here, and it's winter, and I open up my coat, and you got Reverend Saxon sitting over here, and he says, "Oh, Jim's doing great in the talking circuit. He's got that big old fat cigar and all, and it's whiskey in a glass."
That's pretty cool.
And then I go off to the restroom, and you drink it, and you don't anybody see it. Well, that's what it's for. It's disguising whiskey as a cigar. That's what it's for.
That's neat.
And you think that bottle's worth a fortune? Cleveland's got it down as $50.
Yeah.
And that's probably all I would get with it. But I only dug one.
But I mean, it's $50. That's actually not too bad.
Oh, yeah. That's what one guy that's rich told me. He married a rich girl and got money and his parents, and they've left and all that. I mean, really left. They're gone. But anyway, he says, "I want to go metal detecting with you." And I said to him, "Well, no, that's not a good idea because you got more money than you know what to do with, and you don't really care about history. I care about history, and I'm poor. And when I dig up a bottle that's worth $120, I said, whoopee, I got a 120 bottle. And you're like, ho-hum, throw it back in the dirt." So I don't want somebody like that walking along with me. You see my point?
I do.
I don't want you going with me.
I
Because
do.
there's no excitement to you. What he wants to do is talk about his retirement fund. I've been with him hiking. It's my stockbroker. I really want to hear that, right? When you're thinking how you're going to put gas in your...
You're trying to find a $50 bottle.
yeah, and all this that. So, I told you there's a guy that's got a website in town. I guess you can watch it anywhere in the world, and he wanders down the creeks, he and a partner, and you find bottles from erosion, and in the creek banks, you can see where the banks are eroded.
Right.
He doesn't talk dirty.
Yeah.
I've called him and said, "I admire this. We don't get the F word and all that out of you." And he's got a clean show, and he's knowledgeable, and I admire him. He does a good show. So you can watch videos.
Yeah.
And if you got little children, screen them.
Right.
How they're finding bottles. And just like he does, he talks about the history of the bottle.
Yeah.
He talks about the history and the value of the bottle. And he finds some crazy things. He pulled like a $50 bill out of the creek once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the $10 bill after that. So he finds some crazy things.
So, and that's a good point. I mean, whether you're out metal detecting or hunting bottles, you're always going to stumble across anything and everything. So you never know what treasure you're going to find that may not be necessarily what you were looking for.
And I want to insert something right here. I rescued a couple of kittens a couple of days ago.
Yeah,
Little black
you were telling me about that.
kittens. And I found a shelter that gracefully took them in, loved on them, and she said, "Oh, they'll be adopted immediately."
Yeah.
They're two boys, and so anyway, they're just cute as can be. And I wrote them a little check because I told you I'm a poor man.
Yeah.
And I gave her an antebellum silver coin as a thank you.
Oh, that's cool.
But I want people, if you make money off of what I'm talking about, and I'll talk more about appraising and how to find these things and all, but if you say, "My God, I just did this and that," and Jim was telling me, and I made several $100s, I'd like you to take 10%, and I want you to find people that are suffering. And I worry about little kids. I got all my daughter's stuffed toys and teddy bears closets, and I want to give it in the hands of little kids that are scared.
Yeah.
They're alone and scared. I want them to be able to go to sleep at night cuddling this big teddy bear, a companion to talk to. It's important to me. Likewise, animals. I mean, she talked about the cruelty people have done to animals.
Oh, yeah.
And I want you, if you found an animal and you can't keep it or find an owner, take it to a responsible shelter that loves and cares for them.
Yeah.
And get them a good home.
Yeah.
10%. If you make some money and say, "I listened to Jim and went and did this and I made $500.
Yeah.
Well, take $50 of it and try to help the needy and the poor and the scared children, and then the abandoned pets and stuff.
That's awesome.
Try to spread it around.
That's awesome.
I don't feel good, sitting here talking about, "Oh, you can make money doing this, this, and this," unless we're doing something to kind of help this world a little bit.
Right. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. There's another great episode with Jim. Learned a little bit about bottles, so be sure to check out his website.
I'm going to sit in the car and drink some whiskey.
Maybe not.
Some bourbon out of that bottle out there,
Y'all check out his website, JimPhillipsAlabama.com, and you can see some pictures of some of the stuff he's talking about. You can get information on his speaking engagements. If you want to hire him for that, he's here. But make sure you subscribe, follow all this stuff. And it's not for $250.
Well, let me
Jim.
tell you, you're in California. It may be hard to come
out.
out. I need to do this. I went to film school, and I started my own video business in Birmingham in 1983. I helped.
Which is how I met you.
Yeah, you're right. And I helped cast the movie The River.
Yeah.
With Mel Gibson and Sissy Spacek. Lynn Stallmaster was Hollywood's greatest casting director. If you look him up, he's dead. Lynn Stallmaster. He and I locked ourselves in a hotel, the Old Kaler, for a weekend. We auditioned all these Birminghamians for small talking parts in this movie. My secretary got a part.
Yeah.
I don't know why. She got a part. But no, she was a good girl. But anyway, I also used Jim Nabors and Fannie Flagg in commercials. You remember Summerfest. It's
Yes.
the theater series that Birmingham would have every summer.
Right.
Joe Namath would come in. Fannie Flagg and Jim Nabors were here that summer.
Good.
And I videotaped commercials with them. And Jim doesn't talk like he does, but 2 days later after video, I never mentioned anybody I videotaped Jim Nabors. I get this phone call in my office, and I picked up the phone, and I said my company name, and I hear Shazam, and he starts laughing. And this Jim Nabors, right? He called that Shazam. I started laughing, and then he hung up. I said, "You rat," and he hung up. A lot of
cool.
fun. All right, man, I need to shut up and get out of here.
All right, guys, we'll catch y'all on the next episode. See ya.
Gold, 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 they just gotta have that gold, gold, they'll do.
Thanks for listening to another episode. If you have questions for Jim Phillips or would like more information on his speaking availability, visit his website at jimphillipsalabama.com.